Okay, let's talk about week 8 review. In this review, we're going to talk about conditional statements, the Magpie lab, and how to work with while and for loops. Okay, so basically, let's start with the Magpie. In the Magpie, you should work on activity number 2. Now, activity number 2, it's very simple. You just need to follow everything it says. You need the Magpie and the Magpie runner, so you should create on Eclipse. Yeah, you should create your lab or your project with Magpie lab, and just copy and drag these two files from activity 2 from your folder. Okay, now there are two classes. This is the Magpie runner, which contains the main method. Okay, and we have the Magpie 2. The Magpie runner just creates an object from the Magpie 2 class, and it runs a couple of things. First, it gets the greeting, so it uses the method getGreeting that it's located in the Magpie 2, and it scans for a new phrase. Okay. Now, while this statement is equals to by, then it's going to say it's going to go and get the response and continue working. Okay. So get response. Where is the method get response? The method get response is in Magpie 2, and that's the one that you are going to modify. Okay. So the get response is over here. Okay. So this is the one that you are going to create. Okay. You're going to work on it and create some conditions depending on different. So on the Magpie 2, when you see there is a get greeting, it says the first phrase that it returns to the person. As you can see, this is a method called public string get greeting, so it's going to return a string saying hello, let's talk. Okay, now the get response method is the one that's going to decide what to respond to certain words or certain phrases. Okay, now the get respond has a parameter, which is a string, and this response is going to start with an empty string. Okay, so look how all the conditions start. So your job is just to create more conditions, okay, depending on different type of responses. Okay, so statement dot index of, now index of will look for the word mother. Okay, even if it's contained within other words. Okay, so if you say mothers or motherless or any other word that contains the word mother will also be shown, and it will say the index of. Okay, so the index of just gives you the position where this is. So that's why you use the else if and say if it's greater or equal than 0. You say it's greater or equal than 0 is because there is a position inside the string that contains the word mother, and that's why if this happens, then if it finds mother, father, sister, or brother, or because this is the or symbol, okay, the one used for inclusive or. If it finds any of these words, then it will go and respond, tell me more about your family. So just a little bit of help, okay, before the else, because the else is whatever happens if none of these happen. Okay, remember we're talking about nested if statements. Just a little bit of a tip if you want to create another one and you want to talk about dogs or cats. It's very simple, just like you said. If the word dog is around, okay, or the word cat is around, okay, if one of these is around, then it will respond, tell me more about your pets. Okay. So it's pretty simple as when we are using the conditional if statements. Okay. So I'm missing here if this is greater or equal than 0, or this is greater or equal than 0, because we have to compare it with since this returns an index, a number, we have to say that if it's greater or equal than 0 in order for this to be true or false. Okay, so this is the else if, and we have the else, which is the final one in case that none of these work. Now the trim method is very, very important, because let's say somebody just answers with a bunch of spaces. Okay, the trim method can actually take away all those spaces and create a condition if there's nothing in the string. Okay, so when the get response, the string statement, okay, the string statement should be modified a little bit. So I'm going to say the statement is going to be equal to statement dot trim. Okay, and now I'm just taking away all the spaces from the beginning and at the end of our words or phrases. Okay, at the beginning and the end. So now I'm not going to get all those blank spaces, and then I can create another if or else if I like. Put over here. Okay, and it should be my first one. I guess I'm gonna put this one as an if else, and I'm gonna create my very first if, because I don't want it to be blank. If statement dot length, yeah, because I really want to know that the length is greater than 0. Okay, is greater or equal than 0, then if it's 0, because if it doesn't have a length, then I should respond say something, or whatever you want to use. Okay, so that is the case. So I'm just playing with the conditions, just making it a little bit more friendly and making a little bit more logical, the program, the chatbot, and we're going to start getting the use of this lab with more and more complex methods and ways to make it better. Okay? Okay, just a simple modification that I did here so it can work. I created my if statement, and then I created an else if. Okay, not if else. You have to be careful. It's just a typo. So it's else if. Okay, just saying if there's a no. Okay, so we have some problems in our chatbot. If we actually run our chatbot, it says hello, let's talk, and I say nobody is taller than me. Okay, then nobody's taller than me. If I say this, then it says why so negative, and it's because the word no, it's included nobody. Okay, which is a little bit illogical to answer this, so we will fix that later on. But for now, we can continue working and say, okay, let's run it again and let's talk. And if we say my dog is Bob, it's going to say tell me more about your pet. So it is working what the condition that we created. Okay, now what happens when I just put a bunch of spaces? It says say something please. Okay, because it trimmed all the spaces, found out that the length of that string is 0, so it says you're not saying anything. So those are the type of things that I want you to learn in this lab. Okay, the use of those index of, which are very important, index of method, and also the use of the trim method, and conditional statements. Now talking about some other stuff. Okay, let's get into our while. Okay, so let's look at our while and for review. Okay, basically this is something that you're going to need for everything in programming, so it is important that you understand how to use while and for loops very, very well. One thing is to manipulate iterations, and that is very important. The iterations have a start point and an end point, okay, in order to either leave a loop or get into another loop, or call methods as many times as you like. Now, some people use while loops more than for loops. Some people use both. Some people only use for loops, and that is okay. It depends on how do you feel and if it works in your program. The difference between a while loop and a for loop is just that the incremental value or variable is outside or inside your code. For a while loop, if we have a condition, we're gonna start with a single string. Okay. Create a string s, and it's gonna say hello world. Okay, we have a single string, and this string can be actually modified. Remember that we have some certain positions, and we can create a loop that actually separates each and every letter. Okay, so let's create first a while loop. Okay, for a while loop, in order to get out of the loop, you need a condition inside that is being modified. In this case, I'm going to start with a counter. Okay, I need to create a counter before the while loop, and then I'm going to say while counter is less than s dot length. Okay, in this case, let's try to understand how it works. So the counter, while the counter is less than s dot length, s dot length will be the length of the word, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 10 characters. Now 10 characters minus 1 would be 9, and that would be the position, the last position that I need. So I can use counter. It's less than while counter is less than 10. So it will go until 9. It will go to position 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way until 9. Okay? That is very important. Okay? I can say it's less or equal than s dot length minus 1. Okay? Otherwise, if I say equal, we're going to have an out of bounds, because it's going to look for a position that does not exist in that string. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to print out each position of the word, of each letter. And how do I do this? I can use substring or the character at that position. So character at, and I'm going to use the position. Okay, my position is counter. That's the one that's increasing. So it would be character at position 0, then 1, then 2, but we will see that counter needs to be modified. Okay, so system.out.println, and then after I do that, I need to increment counter in order for it to change, and in order for it to finish the loop. And here I'm going to say, okay, system.out.println, the loop has finished, so you know that the loop has ended. Okay, so let's see how this works. Let's take a look at this. Okay, so you can see the bottom part, you see hello world. Okay, so now each letter, it's separated in every line, and as soon as it finishes, it says the loop has finished. Okay, so what it does, it gets the character at each position. That's one way. Okay, now you can create a condition inside a loop. Let's say if you want that each vowel in this word is changed or modified, you can use methods like replace. Okay, you can use methods as if the character is a vowel, if the character is A or E or I or O or U, then do this or do that. So you can always modify it depending on the what you need. Okay, so this is the while loop. We can do exactly the same with a for loop. Okay, so let's try to modify this with a for loop. Now the for loop has all the parameters inside, and the increment value or variable has to be modified inside, and it will do it from the very beginning of the method. So for a variable that starts in 0 and ends at as.length, pretty much the same, right? And it will increment by 1. Okay, you can say increments by 1. Now look at the difference between the two methods, okay? The two loops. The while loop has a condition and it has a variable that needs to change inside. Now the for loop creates the variable at the beginning and also the way that increases, okay? That is the for loop. So for some people this is very practical because they know how the loop is going to work from the very beginning, okay? Now when I do this, I just have to say system.out.println, exactly the same, and what is the character at, in this case, which is the index or which is the variable that is changing. In my case, it's I, because that's the one that is increasing in every iteration. And of course, system okay, and it should work exactly the same. We'll see that it goes exactly the same. So we run the loop, okay? So we have it 2 times. This is the while loop, and this is the for loop. So they work exactly the same way. They can be used indifferently, and for some people they like using while loops, and for some people they like using for loops, okay? So that is not a problem. So that is the difference between while and for. As I said, you can always add some conditions inside these loops in order to make it a little bit more interesting, or in case that you need to modify some of the letters. Let's say I want all the capital H or all the capital letters to change to lowercase letters, then I would need to do that, okay, as a for loop. So that's pretty much it for what we need. Remember to always use readability. Try to code really well, and so you know what goes inside the loop. Be very careful about when you open and close these brackets, okay, that these are the ones that contain. Remember that just by having another one, you will kind of like close other brackets or other methods that will create runtime or logical errors. Okay, so that is all for today. That is the review for week 8. Make sure you understand those string methods, conditional statements, and play with loops. Okay.